Hello. Sorry for the late start, everybody. Okay. Here is the conundrum. I move the camera, and now it's all wonky. Let me adjust this, or else it's going to drive me insane. Oh, it's too late. I'm going to go insane about this camera being in a slightly different spot. I think this is pretty close to how it was normally, right? Hello, hello, hello. Right, you are blue. Hello. Yeah, well, I wouldn't have gone insane if I didn't move the camera. Now I feel too low. You know what? That's fine. This is just for the MinnMax Council. You're the only ones that get to see me lose my freaking mind. Oh, good, Mike. Your merch showed up. That's great. Let me pull up my notes. Oh, this is interesting. Okay, great. Hello, everybody. Okay, let's jump into the show. Let's jump into the show. God, the framing is genuinely going to drive me insane. Okay, so it's like, so I need to move the camera a little bit more. Look, I'll figure it out after the stream. Okay, let's get rolling here. Hello, everybody, and welcome to MinnMax Council, the weekly community Q&A all about you, the people in the MinnMax Council, and just the overall MinnMax community. Thank you so much for listening and for supporting MinnMax in a big way. We are here, everybody. We are in the month of May, otherwise known as the Juggernaut month, the big Madman May, they call it. It's very fun to run MinnMax, and it's very fun to have these monthly cycles. I think it's really... It reminds me of working at Game Informer back with our cover story trips, where it's every month it was cycling through a different video game for what game we were highlighting and talking about and producing content about and traveling for and all that stuff. And in this, it's okay, this is the Patreon cycle is every month, because there's always a drop off at the start of the month, and then we have to slowly climb back up to the top, just like Rocky climbing up those Patreon stairs. And so it's fun. It feels like every month, trying to do the math of how far can we climb this month before, basically I like to talk about Patreon life as if you're a little baby spider climbing up a wall. And at the end of the month, that rain's going to hit and knock you back down. Some would call it an itsy bitsy spider, I guess is the analogy I'm looking for, climbing up that water spout. And then at the end of the month, down comes the rain and knocks the spider out. And so it's always fun to try and figure out okay, what do we have coming up on which month, in which month, and how far can we climb up that water spout this month? And May, I feel is going to be a good month. I feel we're getting to the top of that water spout, hopefully. We have, obviously, Trivia Tower, which supporters at any tier can play. And that is going to be on, I believe, seems like, the plan right now at least, I just reached out to a potential guest co-host, and they said 100% I'm in. And so that's a very good early sign, but not a guarantee yet. But it should be our biggest guest yet, so this should be fun. But very much in the wheelhouse of the other guests. Anyway, so that is going to be on May 17th. So it looks like May 17th, the afternoon, Central Time, evening for May 17th will be when the next Trivia Tower is happening. And I'm very excited about the guest. I'm very excited about the categories, all that fun stuff. May is also going to be big because some might say that we have something happening this May where we're going to be taking a bit of a deep dive. But I guess we'll save that official announcement for the podcast probably this Wednesday. Actually, let me write that down. we have a lot of things to announce, and so we should not mess that up. Hang on, let me write down here, announce that the next deepest dive is Mass Effect 1. Great, so we'll save that big announcement of what our next deepest dive is going to be for the podcast this week. So stay tuned. It could be anything under the sun, everybody. And that'll be coming up, and that'll be kind of the back half of May. So that'll be a very exciting time. And it's been a while since we've done a deepest dive, I guess. You know, we did Batman Arkham Asylum, and that was great. But my favorite thing about this community so far, I have a lot of favorite things about this community, but one of them is no one is really like bugging us too much about content, which is one of the things I was really worried about starting MinnMax, is like volume of people screaming on YouTube or just on Twitter demanding things can be really overwhelming at times. But you know, outside of like suggestions basically in the Discord of like, oh, I wish you guys would do this, or I wish you guys would do this. It's nice that we haven't been screamed at about like, why aren't you doing more deepest dives? Blah, 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 blah. I give you money every month. Like, everyone's been really cool, which is really nice to see. Because like, you know, a big thing coming from last year was we did so many deepest dives. I was feeling a little burned out on it. And I feel like the format kind of suffered for it when we were doing stuff in particular that that wasn't exactly my cup of tea, my type of game. Stuff like Cyberpunk, where it's like, well, we should do it because it's going to be the big game. And ultimately, it was the big game, just not in the way we were expecting. And it's like, that's not really my wheelhouse, is open world RPGs like that. But I still like that discussion. But I felt like that was a good indicator of like, all right, we're stretching too thin here. And so this year, I feel good about Batman Arkham Asylum. I thought that was a really fun deepest dive. I think that was one of my favorites. That's a top 4, maybe top 3 deepest dives. And so hopefully this next one will be on that level. And so we can have some fun guests coming in. Hang on. God's Garage says, breaking news, PlayStation is partnering with Discord starting this year. Is that true? Is that true? Popular communication service will integrate with your social experience on PlayStation beginning early next year. That's amazing that there are all those Microsoft rumors, and then those ended, and now it's like, and PlayStation's getting it on the console. Well, that's great. So maybe people playing on... maybe people playing Trivia Tower can play on PlayStation 5 now. Anything to help normalize Discord, I think is a great thing for us. I mean, so much of the community is happening in Discord. And so that seems fantastic. That's really great. I'm looking forward to it. God's Garage says, Last of Us Part 2 and Final Fantasy 7 Deepest Dives were both great. Thank you. Yeah, those were our 2 biggest. I think technically Last of Us Part 2 was our biggest view count one. And then Final Fantasy 7 is still my favorite. And so trying to map out deepest dives this year is getting interesting. We've hit a couple snags for the one after this, but we'll try and figure out exactly how that's doing it. BeatenDownBrian, thank you for being here. He says, I kind of feel doing a game just because it's a, quote, big game is probably a mistake. Passion for the game is what's going to make a good deepest dive. I completely agree. Thank you, BeatenDownBrian. Yeah, it's not like I didn't want to play Cyberpunk. It's just like, you know, I didn't have a fire in my belly about like, I can't wait for Cyberpunk, woo! Like I did for Final Fantasy VII Remake and stuff like that. Oh my gosh. Remember, if you have a question you want me to answer, it helps me if you can highlight stuff. BeatenDownBrian, thank you for being here. I feel like you're such a huge part of the community and you've been such a huge supporter, but I feel like you're not always in MinnMax Council, so we appreciate it. I know the timing's always crazy for you over there. But yeah, be sure to @me if you have a direct question you want to make sure that I don't miss for MinnMax Council here. God's Garage says, here's hoping for adaptive trigger integration for Trivia Tower. That does sound fantastic. Rock Party asks, are we doing a meetup this year? Which is an excellent question. You know, a big part of MinnMax from the founding was we were hoping to have regular meetups to kind of coincide with charity drives, you know, all that fun stuff. And obviously that is tricky with a frickin' pandemic happening. And so I would like to say, yes, we'll have a meetup. I think realistically, to do it safely, it might not be until maybe our 2-year anniversary in October. But we'll keep you in the loop. You know, maybe there can be an outdoor one before that, but I don't want to push anybody ahead of time and, It's tough to predict the state of the world. So that's my ballpark for what I'm thinking right now. But back to May, everybody. So we have the Deepest Dive happening. We got Trivia Tower happening. I have some fun interviews lined up. A little more off the beaten path than the last handful of interviews, but they're interviews that I'm excited about. I'm recording one of them on Thursday, actually, so maybe that'll even be up early next week. It's kind of a little more game industry insider type stuff. But on the podcast this week, we are going to be announcing some new stuff. I feel like I've been kind of teasing it. Very subtly teasing it by beating it over the head. But there's kind of going to be a new push, a new initiative from MinnMax here involving at least one new face. New, in quotes. So we'll be announcing all that on the MinnMax show this week. So you can watch it live if you're at the Backstage Pass tier and kind of get an early scoop on what's happening there. But it's going to be interesting. It's something that it's like, we need to be doing this. And so we should find a way to make it happen. And because of your support financially, we have the means to make it happen. And so there's a fun kind of partnership, I guess you'd call it, that we'll be announcing on the podcast this Wednesday. So please look forward to that. Starkiller, thank you for being here. He says, have you thought about doing more interviews with gaming personalities, similar to Brian David Gilbert? I feel like that could always help bring new patrons. Yeah, I think a big part of that is I am maybe not the most hip when it comes to gaming personalities. Like, I like Brian David Gilbert's stuff, so I felt like, okay, this can be a good interview because I'm excited to talk to him. I don't know how many other personalities I'd be excited to talk to, but I guess it's like I've talked to, journalists, and I guess Dan Reichert's a personality, Kyle Bossman's a personality. So we've done those types of things. I was thinking about doing a Twitter poll about just like, who do you want us to do more interviews with at MinnMax? Developers, people from the games press. And I feel like developers would win by a landslide. But if you look at the total views for our developer interviews versus people in the games press / personality side, it's a slam dunk in the personality side. And so, yeah, I would definitely want to follow my interest there, Starkiller. But you're right. I mean, our biggest interview by a mile is the Brian David Gilbert interview. The next interview we have is with somebody from the games press. Not to the personality level of a Brian David Gilbert, but hopefully it'll be interesting for folks. A little bit more than maybe that Jason Schreier wheelhouse. And that interview did pretty well too. The KOTOR news happening inside of that definitely helped. The Jason Schreier saga has been really interesting. He was on the podcast where he talked about the Sony stuff, and that made a lot of news. And then he was on that interview where he talked about the remake of KOTOR apparently happening at Asper Media, which is still weird to think about. And that also made a lot of news. And I understand that Jason Schreier is a divisive figure. Hopefully in that interview, I addressed some of those, both viewpoints on that topic, which hopefully I understand and sympathize with. But yeah, we definitely had a handful of people being like, what are you doing, MinnMax? Like, why promote this guy? He sucks. Like that type of thing. I know everyone has a different reason to hate Jason Schreier, but like, he's a smart guy. Hopefully you got something out of the interview, and hopefully you appreciated kind of the tone and some of the questions asked in there. It wasn't all just an ass-kiss rodeo, as they say. But yes, we have more interviews coming up later in the month, and let's see. They're more developer-focused. And one of them is somebody that I tried to get to coincide with the Deepest Dive a long time ago and didn't hear back from, and now it's like, aha, the perfect opportunity to actually talk to this person. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Jake Twitchin, hello. Thank you for being here, Twake. He says, do you have any content plans for Final Fantasy VII Intergrade? Maybe a supplemental piece of the celebration of Final Fantasy VII. That'd be funny just to call it like the continuation of the celebration of Final Fantasy VII. Jake, that kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier, I feel like, where we are going to go hard and heavy on Intergrade. Just the question that we've talked about before in MinnMax Council is, I don't know exactly what form that takes. I don't know if it takes the form of a follow-up Deepest Dive, which would be fun. At the same time, it might kind of eat into some other Deepest Dives we were planning. Or if we just stream the entire thing, maybe it's both. So we will definitely have a big old jamboree for Intergrade in whatever form that is. It's still yet to be determined. IanTClark, thanks for being here. He said, I recently got super into The Witcher 3. The problem with playing older games is that I've got no one to talk to about them. did you ever play the Witcher games? Ian, you can't use me as somebody to talk to about this, but you can call into MinnMax Council at the end of the month, the last Sunday of the month, Ian. Nah, not really, if I'm being honest with you. Ian, don't tell anybody. I started Witcher 2 before I went on the cover story trip and visited CD Projekt Red for Witcher 3, and maybe played a couple hours of Witcher 2. There's a castle and a dragon or something. And then Witcher 3, I probably only played for maybe 3 hours. Real baby stuff. Those are rookie numbers. And so not really. I'm not really like a big fantasy guy, IanTClark. I'm more of a cyberpunk guy through and through. No, so it's never really been my cup of tea. But obviously they're amazing games, and I would never take anything away from them. But I'm glad that you're enjoying them, and I'm sorry we didn't do a deepest dive on them. But I think it's also a reminder that deepest dives on open world games are not a good fit. God's Garage says, you've said before that you don't talk about a game you adamantly hate because of the focus on positivity in the show. How do you navigate that line of negativity and critical analysis? I don't know if that's true, God's Garage. What I try to avoid on the podcast is like negativity that's kind of, what's the right way to frame this? Uninformed negativity. Here's my distinction. And maybe you can help define exactly what I'm going for here is, we got codes for Lazy Grove, which is an Animal Crossing-like game that's on PC. It's on Switch. And it's from Spryfox, who made Triple Town, one of my favorite mobile games. I love Triple Town. I love Spryfox. And so I was very much looking forward to it. And so Janet and Jeff and I played it, and we're all just kind of like, meh. I want to like it more than I do. I don't really know. And so at a certain point, it's like, let's just not talk about that on the show. Why spend that much time taking a detour to talk about a game that isn't really on everybody's radar just to be like, not really doing it for me. No, thanks. I don't know how many people were helping in that realm. Whereas, I think maybe the most negative I've ever been about a game, that's interesting, maybe, is that going back to like the Game Informer show when Paper Mario Color Splash came out. And I remember being way too obnoxious and ranting and raving on the Game Informer show about how frustrating Color Splash was on the Wii U, which was a game that looks great, the writing's great, and then just the gameplay was so infuriatingly stupid, and the combat system was so infuriating on an RPG mechanics level that it's like, I'm really passionate about this, and I feel like I know Paper Mario well enough to, and it's a big enough game that like I want to talk about why I don't like this. And so if it's a game that's very much in my wheelhouse and I don't like it, I'm not opposed to talking about it. But I think just taking those detours just to be meh or negative on a game is kind of where I've tried to steer us away from, just 'cause like it's not really helping anybody. And even like on smaller indie games too, it's just like, if you're really passionate about something, that's great. Let's find a way to get it on the show. But if you're meh on some indie game, it's like, we're good. We don't need to dunk on these devs just to put it on people's radar to say, stay away. Unless it's really lighting up the sales charts or something. Bob Buell, he says, no question here. Good. Thank you, Bob. Just here to say, I watched all of you and Ronnie play Pokemon Snap on the stream, and the chaotic goofiness was off the charts amazing. Love seeing it and would love more of that. Thank you. Yeah. For all you podcast listeners, you might have missed that. But we had our first in-person stream in the new studio, even though technically this is kind of a Studio B situation over here. So it was our first in-person stream since, for more than a year. And so it was pretty wild. But yeah, best friend Ronnie came over and we started a new game, a new Pokemon Snap. You can find that archive on our YouTube channel. But it was very fun to stream, obviously, the game that we're really excited about, and then also just like have that weird energy of like, oh yeah, we're in the same room. And so it was a very goofy stream, maybe too goofy at times, maybe too obnoxious at times. I went back and like looked at some clips and I was like, ugh, this is like, basically, oftentimes when I hang out with Ronnie, we'll find some dumb role-playing rabbit hole, weird jokey thing that we just get sucked into and bounce off each other and be goofy. And there's definitely always a moment where Like you look around the room and everyone's just like, what the hell are you two doing? This is stupid. You know, like before the stream, we're hanging out outside. It was like me and Ronnie, my girlfriend, and I forget what we were role playing exactly, but somehow Ronnie and I started just going on some path, making voices and, you know, doing typical stupid crap. And my girlfriend was just like, gave that blank stare of like, I don't know what this is, but this is annoying. And I felt like at times that Pokemon Snap stream kind of veered into that realm of like, the internet could be rolling its eyes about like, what the hell is happening on this couch? This is stupid. But I'm glad you enjoyed it. It seems like there's one comment in particular on YouTube that was really interesting where it said like, I forget who it was, I'm sorry, but they said that they got strangely emotional watching that stream, like seeing people be that jokey in person, sitting on the same couch. But I was happy just technically that for 2-person streams, you know, if they're vaccinated, get your vaccine, everybody, that it seems doable in this kind of small studio space. Like technically it seemed like there's a couple things I would want to tweak, very small things, just like the ISO on the camera and stuff. But really all I'm doing for those streams is taking this camera, like my podcast camera, sliding it over a couple feet and then aiming it at the wall or at the couch over here. And then we can play. And it seemed like the setup worked out pretty well. And so obviously in the future, oh God, I say in the future, but I look at this month and how busy this month is. And it's like, at some point I'll finish off Studio A for the MinnMax studio and then we can have more than 2 people. But having that option for 2-person in-stream streams, seems great. I guess even 2-person podcast, but sitting on the couch recording a podcast is kind of an uncomfortable position. But thank you, Bob, for watching that very silly stream. I had a blast playing that game and still playing it. Chris Fader, when do we get more of that sweet vaccinated couch gaming content? Not to suddenly start bugging you about content if you said you weren't doing that. No promises, but I mean, if there's ever a good opportunity, maybe not. You know, Ronnie and I still want to finish streaming It Takes Two. And so that one makes sense to do remotely, I do believe. But in the future, when there's silly games or odd games or something, and like 2-person in-person streams is viable, it's nice to know that the setup we have right now can support it. So not ruling it out. We'd love to do more. IanTClark says, you and MinnMax got name dropped a bunch on the Fire Escape podcast first episode. Surely you'll show up as a guest in the future, right? Great question. Yeah, that is Dan Reichert and Mike Mahardy and Mary Kish's new podcast, Fire Escape Podcast, friends of the show. Yeah, that was very flattering and also alarming to listen to that podcast and have my name referenced that many times. But I guess it's nice. Dan likes telling his old Ben Hansen stories that I've heard 6,000 times, but sure. And so, yeah, I'd love to be a guest. We were talking about having some crossover thing in the future. Maybe not this week, but maybe in the future. You know, we can try and line something up to cross those streams. Because that would be definitely fun. And I think there's a lot of overlap between our audiences and kind of tonally and stuff like that. Yeah, I talked to, on Saturday, had a big group Discord call with a bunch of folks, including Dan Reichert and Mike Mahardy. So it was nice to talk to him there. And yeah, it seems like they're very excited about Fire Escape. So it should be an interesting week for that on that front. Jeff Enright. Thank you for being here, Jeff. Thanks for your support. Thanks for joining the MinnMax Council. Hang on, Jeff. I know you appreciate it, but it caught my eye. And Bob Buell just had a comment where he said, the dirge of intergrade. I don't know what that means, but I like those combinations of words. Jeff Enright says, Ben, gut reaction. What's your McDonald's drive-thru order? All right, Jeff. Bam. I would go chicken sandwich. Do they have spicy chicken at McDonald's? I forget if they do. If they do, I'd go spicy chicken. No mayo. Add ketchup. And then order fries. Alternatively, chicken tenders. The old tendies, as we call them. But I feel like our local McDonald's did not have tenders last time I went through, and I was really frustrated by that. Cozy Grove, yes, was the name of that game, Kyle Silva. Thank you. Jeff Enright says, sounds like trying to be a better form of critical reviewer versus traditional reviewer, critiquing in a snarky/better way. Yeah. Fred DeNovo says, what's it like talking to Ronnie without connection issues? I don't like it. I feel like I need those connection issues to really feel like it's a real Ronnie stream, is to have him troubleshooting for an hour before the stream and then bailing on it. He did say that he ran an Ethernet cable through his house. So next time we stream, it takes 2. He won't be dropping out every 14 seconds, which will be nice. I have a couple questions over here that people who can make it to the stream submitted a comment down here. Jalen Brooks asks, Inception or Tenet? Great question. I'm not, I know this is sacrilegious. I like Dark Knight as much as the next person, meaning I like Dark Knight, but I'm not the biggest Christopher Nolan guy. I'd take Interstellar over all of them. Not Dark Knight, but a lot of them. And I haven't seen Tenet yet. And I liked Inception, but I saw it once. And don't really have a lot of strong opinions about it other than like, oh, it's cool. I'm happy it was like a new idea. And it did well in Hollywood. Tactical Dreamer asks, have you continued playing Returnal? Ben, any new thoughts? New thoughts on Returnal? Great question. I believe, yes, after the podcast, I did continue playing it. I've been absorbed in new Pokemon Snap, so I need to go back and play a little more Returnal. But new thoughts, no. I still am in the first biome, and I'm starting to get a better handle on some systems. So no, not really any big new thoughts. I released that little video essay talking a little bit about Housemarque's history and their history of canceled projects and stuff on our YouTube channel, which it was a pretty big views bomb. But you know, I guess Housemarque is still not really a household name, and people like Returnal, but what do you want? We don't really want video essays about that studio yet, apparently. I think we'll be talking more about Returnal this week on the podcast. It seems like people like Kyle is surprisingly into it and stuff, so we'll be talking about it there. It should be a fun time. Let's see. So, but on the video essay front, you know, we released several last week. We had the the Pokemon Snap video essay about the history of Pokemon Snap, and then the Returnal one. And I like doing those videos, and there's definitely comments, people who appreciate it. And when I have a little room in my schedule, it's not too hard to do, and so I like doing it. And hopefully those will find an audience someday. Swiggity swoo! Thank you, Swiggity. They say, how have MinnMax's priorities changed over time? How have you supported those new goals? Good God, Swiggity. You need to be here in person to ask that kind of question, or you should call in on the last end of the month to ask that kind of question. How have MinnMax's priorities changed over time? I mean, there's like the obvious thing of like community meetups has been lessened. Sadly, we haven't done as many charity drives as I was expecting. There's one, actually that's interesting. There's probably one coming up in May. A charity drive we'll be pushing, which should be fun. Full disclosure, for the last several months, I've been trying to line up this event, this cool thing that could happen, and coincide that with the launch of a charity drive. And because this thing was always on the fritz about whether or not it was happening, I was like, well, let's hold off on the charity drive until we know, so we can bundle it with this very cool thing. And now it looks like that cool thing is not happening. So how's that for a fun tease? So the charity drive has kind of been connected with this thing in limbo, which is frustrating. And so I am still angry that the thing isn't happening, but sometimes cool ideas don't come together. That's fine. So how have MinnMax's priorities changed over time? I think out of the gate, it was much more about shows like Crossfade. It was much more about like, let's contract out with people, get those podcasts, get the network built. Let's build that up over time. And the part that I didn't give enough credence to and pay enough attention to was like, it seems like what the community wants, which is nice, is like, hey, we want more of the people that are already cohorts, which financially it's like, that's great. But you know, we have public numbers. You can see how much we're making. And so it's like, okay, divvying up that pie. I don't know how much more of these people we can afford. And so we're trying to be fair about that. But basically I would say the way it's shifted over time is, yeah, originally it was more about contracting out and more building up a network. And then the message seemed to be more of focus on kind of the core, which I think we've done a pretty good job of over the last year and a half. But one of the things that I'm most proud of with MinnMax, and we've talked about it before in MinnMax Council, is just that idea of building up like the network, building up, even if it's not a literal podcast network, like more shows like Crossfade, building up just kind of the community of voices. You know, the fact that you all know my friend Ronnie now is wild, or, you know, Ross and Brian coming in for Marvel and Star Wars shows, having people like Sarah Podzorski and stuff, just kind of like that. What would you call it? What would you call this thing that we're doing here with the MinnMax? I can't even say the word. But, just kind of having that core of the cohorts and kind of having just kind of like that on-air community, rotating voices to go through. I think that's a really fun idea. And so hopefully we can keep expanding that if we continue to grow. But that is definitely the push and pull, is how much do we double down on the people we have versus how much do we continue to spread that out a little bit. But I feel pretty good about like where we're at for the friends of the show range. It feels like it's a distinct number of voices that people can recognize at this point. And Sweetie Swoo also asks, how have you supported those new goals? By thinking a lot about it and talking a lot about it and taking 6,000 notes. If you all knew how many notes I took every week, it turns out the core for running a business is a lot of Google Docs and taking constant notes in Google Docs. One of the biggest things that I did to really help me is like, obviously I have like the big list here. I have a Google Doc right now that I can see called MinnMax Content. And it is just a lot of ideas of content we can make in the future. And do they say how many notes it is or how many pages it is? Oh yeah, it's 30 pages on Google Docs. So it's a lot of crap going on. But then on top of that, I have a templates thing for a Google Doc. And then the biggest thing is I added just a MinnMax to-do, like a quick to-do list. And that is the biggest thing, is just having that like quick turn. It's like, okay, if I have a window of freedom, what can I do in there? And then I can look at that and say, that's right. I need to do this, need to reach out to this person about this, need to promote this, need to do this, need to get this contract out to this person. And then down near the bottom of that list is work on this video essay, which you've been meaning to do for a long time, which is a fun thing that hopefully I'll get to in the near future here. Oh, Bob Buell. Oh, says, you seem like a fella who keeps his wires organized. Do you? If so, are you a twist tie guy, a rubber band guy, a zip tie lad? I do like to keep my wires organized, Bob. But I'm not smart enough to use any of those twisty ties or rubber bands or anything. I should definitely do that. And I probably will need to, because we're going to be running a lot of frickin' cables going from the new studio into here, because the big thing is I would prefer not to buy a separate computer and then have that just in the other room. So we're going to be running like audio and HDMI cables and everything along probably the floor through the wall over here. And so that's where it gets tricky. And especially like building up the new studio, it's like, do we need an XLR snake? Do we not? All those fun things. Oh, here we go. God's Garage. As an apparent chicken connoisseur, how do you feel about Raising Cane's? I like Raising Cane's. My stomach don't, but I do. Edgar Vasquez. I recently tried the chicken sandwich from Popeyes, McDonald's, KFC, and Wendy's. I rank them as follows. Number 1, Popeyes. Number 2, KFC. Number 3, McDonald's. Number 4, Wendy's. I like Wendy's just because they were very early in the game for just, here's a good old spicy chicken sandwich. And that's all I'm looking for. Although not this month, mind you, because my Better Quest goal for last month was no cheese and no spicy stuff, which I am very eager for this Thursday to hit so I can end that goal, because I'm ready for some spicy cheese. My first stop is going to be going and getting a jalapeno pizza and just cromping into that sucker. And so, by the way, that's a good reminder that we have Better Quest coming up on Thursday. So Thursday evening, Jeff Cork will be joining for Better Quest, of course. So if you were listening to this and you want to maybe be on the show, but then just also set a personal goal for yourself for the month of May. Hey, it's almost swimsuit season, everybody. Woo! You can set a personal goal for yourself during the month of May by going in the Discord, and then in the Better Quest channel, there is pinned to the Better Quest Discord channel a spreadsheet where you can enter your spreadsheet, and we'll be taking some interesting goals from that spreadsheet and having those folks call in on this Thursday's episode of Better Quest, which will be happening for folks at the Backstage Pass, and then that'll be public for everybody on Friday as well. And obviously the podcast will be in this podcast feed. It should be a fun one. I got to think of a new goal. I'm kind of bouncing between a couple different ones. If I'm going off of my basic idea for Better Quest, which is one physical, one mental, alternating every month, I guess this one would be a mental goal. And I have a good one in mind, but at the same time, it's going to be a really busy month, and this one's going to be time intensive, so I don't think it's the right time for that. IanTClark says, I actually didn't like The Dark Knight Rises. I like The Dark Knight Rises. I actually just saw bits and pieces of it on TV the other day, and I was like, this movie still rules. Starkiller asks, how am I liking new Pokemon Snap? Great question. I'm enjoying it. I'm definitely to the point where I'm a little confused about how to make more progress and how to unlock new areas. I think some of that stuff is a little bit confusing, probably because I was streaming and not paying as much attention as I probably should have to what Professor Mirror was screaming at me. But the whole thing about like the Christa Bloom flowers, is that what I'm supposed to be doing to make progress? I don't really understand exactly how to do that. But so there's some of those little things that I'm on the edge of Googling, but I think part of the fun is kind of discovering some of these secrets on your own. So I haven't really been Googling too much for new Pokemon Snap, but I've really been enjoying it. And we'll talk about more on the podcast this week. Jeff Enright, thanks for being here. Thank you, Jeff. He says, I made a life decision to start watching Star Trek The Next Generation. Of course, this means I have several hours of my life planned ahead of me. Yeah, no kidding. What similar kind of decisions have you made? See, this is a big thing for me, is I'm not big on watching TV shows because I don't like having all those months and hours of content in front of me. I think it's too intimidating. So in terms of like commitments, I think the biggest one was Veep over the quarantine. Went through all of Veep and loved the first 4 seasons or so. And then by the end, I was kind of actively turned off by Veep. It was kind of frustrating in a lot of ways. Just a little too mean. And I think they just got the lesson early on that like, oh, this show is just us insulting each other and swearing. And then by the end, when that's like all it really is, it kind of lost, like all sitcoms, it kind of lost the humanity and reality of it and kind of just became a parody of itself. And then I went back to watch some of the early episodes again. And it's like, yeah, this was a really good show. That's right. It's amazing when it's amazing. Leafeon, thank you for being here. He says, what do you think the best video game movie has been in the last 10 years? Detective Pikachu, Sonic, Mortal Kombat, Warcraft, Tomb Raider, Rampage, Angry Birds. Am I missing any? I didn't see Angry Birds. I didn't see Rampage. I think I saw Tomb Raider. That seems like when I watched on a plane and then immediately forgot about. And it's not that weird thing where you can count Wreck-It Ralph. Let's not count Wreck-It Ralph. I guess it would be Detective Pikachu. Even though I got a real bone to pick with this Ryan Reynolds fella. He did this move, which is like, I'm very not hip and behind the times and all that fun stuff, but I saw this and I was like, that's diabolical. And what he did is he has this freaking mobile cell company or whatever called Mint. I regret even saying the name, but there we go, Mint. But what he did is after the Mortal Kombat movie was released, which, Johnny Cage is not in, and there are a lot of casting rumors about who's going to be Johnny Cage in the next Mortal Kombat. What this Ryan Reynolds fella did is he just tweeted out a picture of like him photoshopped as Johnny Cage in the Mortal Kombat looking gameplay, and then just tweeted out, there's been a lot of rumors, casting rumors about Johnny Cage. I don't know, who do you think should play him? Wink, wink. We'll finish him just like Mint Cellular is finishing all of these other AT&T like companies. So he, knowing the internet so well, tweeted out this thing, knowing it'd get picked up by 6,000 crappy dork movie sites about like, oh, is Ryan Reynolds going to play Johnny Cage, the new Mortal Kombat? And it's all just an advertisement for his cell phone company. It's like that idea of tying into geek news tidbit movie crap with a direct advertisement and knowing that people are going to pick it up. And like Ed Boon retweeted it. I was really frustrated by that. So what I'm saying is it is Detective Pikachu, but at the same time, Ryan Reynolds is an infuriating person. Tech question. How do you record the audio from the Discord call in the shows? Another Patreon that I support is having trouble recording their call-in like shows. Great question. We don't record audio from Discord. Within Discord, I guess is the right way of putting it. So the way I do it is I have Discord and all the Discord audio, the output is set to the mixer because I have my mixer, which you can't see off camera here, hooked into everything. And so all I'm doing for recording the podcast is recording the mixer. And in the mixer, I have my voice. I have the computer voice, which is all of Discord. And so all the calls and everybody. And for the call-ins, the way that has to work then, for the easiest way, is I have Zoom open. And so I have the cohort, whoever's on for the call-in, open on Zoom. And then we take the calls from the Discord. Does that help you answer your question? And then using OBS for the software, which is free. Check it out. BeatenDownBrian, hello. Have you put much thought into how you'll cover E3? Or do you have any plans you can share with us? I feel like it'd be a good time of year to bring in new people. That's a great point, for sure. I've had discussions about what we can do for E3. Some of it depends on how much cohorts can do, want to do, feel like they're being paid enough to do. You know, that's definitely a big thing with all things MinnMax here, while I'm the only person full-time. And so... no concrete plans right now. I mean, we'll stream our reactions to all the press conferences. I feel like E3 is still confusing for what it even frickin' is this year. But yes, I mean, the core of it is highest hopes is we'll be streaming our reactions, and then it'd be great to have Leo do some funny E3 stuff on top of that. Whatever form that takes would be great, but a lot of it comes down to Leo and Leo's schedule. Blue Mayhem says, new show, Ben Hansen teaches toys to take notes. Okay, sure. Blue Mayhem, teaches you to take notes. Oh, yeah. Or I can teach my toys to take notes as well. Fred DeNovo, have you been watching Kyle Bossman's Delayed Input? Good stuff. Yes, so Kyle Bossman, friend of the show, former Easy Ally. Oh, boy. Started a show and actually launched his own Patreon, which is a bold move, but it seems to be working out well for him. And the show on YouTube is called Delayed Input, and I have really, really enjoyed it. I actually just sent those episodes to Ronnie. Like the premise for his first episode of Delayed Input is like perfect, which is it's a YouTube video where the pitch is he has an Amazon Alexa that hasn't been updated since 2016. And so he talks to this old Amazon Alexa. This is all just a joke. It's not real. This isn't real, y'all. But he talks to this old Amazon Alexa and tries to explain everything in the gaming world that's happened since 2016 and asks, is this weird? Is this wild? Is this nuts? You know, stuff like Kratos being in Fortnite, stuff like that. Just for a way to kind of recap how weird the world is now, which I thought was a very good angle. So you can check that out on YouTube. God's Garage, hello. In an alternate timeline, who would take your spot as the host of MinnMax? I don't know if you need alternate timeline as much as just a timeline where I'm hit by a bus, God's Garage, which is probably going to happen within 2 days. Yeah, so in the bus timeline, who would take my spot as the host? I don't know. I think, realistically, it would be like Jeffem can handle all business MinnMax stuff, and then Leo can handle directing all creative MinnMax stuff. I think that would be... I don't have a will, but that would be the MinnMax will. I think would be that split. In terms of like who would host the podcast, I don't know if Leo likes hosting podcasts. I don't think he does. So... I don't know. I think Kyle would do a good job. So, Kyle. Chris Vader, as a counter to Bob's question, do you, like the rest of us, have a giant box of unknown mystery wires you really refuse to part with somewhere? Yeah, although, you know, I moved back in September, and so I got rid of a lot of those old mystery wires. But I do still have, like, several... And there's a closet over there that has a bunch of mystery wires. Some of it gaming, some of it for the studio, and so it's just kind of a real mess. And if I ever need like a USB-C cable, I can go in there and dig around for 45 minutes, try and find that sucker. Shazira, hello Shazira, asks, where do you keep your box of broken controllers and why? They're also in that same closet. Don't look in there, please. Rock Party, are you aware that Dan's new house in Danbury, Connecticut, are you aware Dan's new house is in Danbury, Connecticut, which got into a fight last week tonight and named a sewage plant after John Oliver? Yeah, you know, I don't think I quite connected that it was where Dan's new house was, but I watched last week tonight and enjoy it, and I do remember that sewage plant thing, so I think at some point it came up, yeah. Edgar Vasquez, did you say they just released the Marvel movie schedule for the next 3 years? Yes. I did see that. That is wild. That was a very good little trailer. And so it was wild that they use that as a way to have several announcements. Like I saw IGN and GameSpot, you know, all the cool gaming sites tweeting out their avalanche of movie news. And I saw them tweet out that like, oh, the titles were revealed for Black Panther 2 and Captain Marvel 2. And that was like burying the lead to me because yes, those were announced. So it's going to be Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Little on the nose, but it's nice. I feel like it ties into, you got to tip the cap in some way. And that to, you know, Chadwick Boseman, but that is going to be such a weird one. I mean, not since Princess Leia going down have we had a situation where it's like, I just don't know how they're going to, by the way, that was very disrespectful to call her Princess Leia going down. Ever since the great Carrie Fisher passed away, you know, we haven't had that situation. Just like, how does a major studio deal with this character's death? And I don't know how you do it. Like, how would you open Black Panther 2? Would you have him die from an illness and try and have it mirror real life in that way? That seems like the classiest way to go. I mean, plot-wise, if you're a robot from hell, the classiest way to go would be like, oh, look, our boy Black Panther, he's hanging out in this building. And then a villain comes in and blows it up in the beginning and you never see him. And it's just extra motivation for hating a new character. I don't know if they'd want to do that. I think it has a really interesting opportunity to kind of talk about death and the death of a leader and what that can do to a society. I feel like that's a really fascinating topic. What worries me is that like that movie's coming out next summer, which seems so quick. Like I would hope that Ryan Coogler has the time that he needs to really think about the impact this could have and the most powerful story you could tell without Black Panther. And then Captain Marvel 2 is called The Marvels, which sounds like a TV show. I don't know how I feel about that name. And like Captain Marvel did so well, you think you'd want that name in there, but obviously because Miss Marvel is going to be in it, they wanted some way to do it. And so how do you acknowledge that in the title? You could have it Captain Marvel : more than one Captain Marvel : It Takes Two, Captain Marvel : Miss Marvel. And so maybe it's cleaner to just call it The Marvels, but I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm so much more interested in Miss Marvel after playing Marvel's Avengers. So that game was good for something, darn it. And then, but the biggest thing that I'm saying they buried the lead on is they showed footage for Eternals in there, which I am so endlessly curious about. This is from the director of Nomadland, which is a movie I enjoyed. And they, like, I was listening to this interview. I think Salma Hayek was on WTF. And she was talking about riding horses for the Eternals. And I was like, that's really interesting to have like horseback riding in this Marvel film. And so it seemed like it was a little more down to earth, kind of the gritty, if you want to call it, not gritty, but I don't know, practical Marvel movie angle is kind of where they're going with it. And from those clips, that seems to hold true. It's just kind of them hanging out on a beach. And I'm looking forward to a different looking and feeling Marvel film. And even though I don't really know what the Eternals are about, and I'm skeptical about a lot of things maybe, I'm curious to see what that movie looks like. Well, I guess now that we know what it looks like visually, I guess just how it feels and how it plays and how different it can feel compared to other Marvel movies. Because to have like a Marvel movie that is the non-CG Marvel movie is a really cool idea. And then when the next Avengers team up happens and then they're just, these characters are thrown into green screen palooza, it'll be extra jarring and fun. Blue Mayhem says, thank you for the answer on how to record. I will relay the answer. Hey, any problem? Any problem, I say. God's Garage says, next week there's going to be a post with Kyle photoshopped in as Professor Mirror from New Pokemon Snap. That's a big ad for MinnMax. That would be fun. That's a diabolical way to go about it. Chris Fader says, now that the chat has collectively decided you'll be replaced by a bus, what are some good bus puns for the spin-off shows? Hey, man. They're coming in hot. Bob Buell has new show Bus, which that is the correct answer. God's Garage coming in swinging with House Hunter Bus. Also fantastic. Leafeon says it's weird because the Eternals are probably the most superhero characters in Marvel. Icarus the leader is basically Superman. Oh, interesting. Is he the Game of Thrones Rob guy? I'm curious to see how they handle all that stuff. But let's see. Other stuff we could talk about with this is we should break down New Show Plus options this week. So if you're listening to this, if you're at the $10 tier, you can vote every week for what we stream for New Show Plus. And this is a bit of a different week. This is a funky one because the plan was, well, we did Great Goatee Hunt last week where we take a look at a game like Returnal. And so we started out the meeting talking about different options, and it was like, well, Great Goatee Hunt's just kind of a one and doneer, so that's probably done. So that's not going to be in the running this week. And I think it was Serial who said, like, why not? Like, let's put Returnal, Great Goatee Hunt in the poll again. If people want us to keep playing it, that's an option, which I do think is a good idea. So in this week's poll for New Show Plus, we have the second episode of the Great Goatee Hunt for Returnal. We have E3 Memories returning, which did not win in the past, but this is an option for us just to go back and watch an old E3 press conference. That should be a fun time. That'll be an option for folks. I think it's going to be the Ubisoft 2011 press conference, just for the classic Mr. Caffeine nightmare. That seems like a good way to go. Then we have a New Show Plus show that you can vote for called Explorin', where it is going to be somebody on their phone calling in through Discord mobile, and maybe more than one person going around, basically just a talk show where we talk to the chat and this person just shows off cool things they find walking around nature. So Explorin' is the name of that one. And then, let's see, Shazira asks, when you're trying to come up with clever show names, puns for New Show Plus, who does the most work? Everybody does a lot of good work. Surreal's very good at it. Leo's very good at it. Janet's coming in swinging. Which brings me to the final fourth choice for New Show Plus this month, or this week, which I was thinking like, oh, it'd be fun to do something with Battlefield 5 since it's in the PS Plus game. Maybe it's something we can do there. I wanted to play more Firestorm, which is their Battle Royale. Maybe we could have a show that's about forgotten Battle Royales. So what's a good name for Forgotten Battle Royales? The name of that show, a New Show Plus. And after a long debate and a big discussion, we've come up with Goodle Royale or Battle Royale, Baddle, where we go back and play Forgotten Battle Royales and determine if they are a Goodle Royale or a Battle Royale. Largely Leo Vader's jam. So please look forward to those options and let us know which one you'd like us to stream and which new show we should create on New Show Plus this week. Okay. Lots of fun stuff. I have a lot of other fun notes, but these are things we can get to in the future. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff to talk about next week. I mean, not a lot. We'll have stuff to talk about next week for future MinnMax and kind of our plans that we'll be revealing on the podcast this week. And don't be scared, and don't get your hopes too high. Basically, is where you should be at. But it should be just like this is like a new push from MinnMax is to do this funky thing. So you have that to look forward to. Oh, hang on. I mean, Leafeon is coming and swinging with the good old, the battle, and the ugly old Royale. Perfect. Oh, Bob Beal asks, are we photo moding tonight? Hell yeah. So tonight, if you're listening to this on Monday, thank you for listening to this on Monday. Kyle Hilliard and I will be streaming the return of Photo Mode Snap. That's going to be, we'll be streaming it on Twitch, and the plan right now is for it to happen at 8 p.m. Central. So we had people submit their best shot from new Pokemon Snap. So if you're playing that game and you want to submit a shot, there might still be time if you run to it right now after listening to this, and submit a link to the tweet or to the Google Drive photo to make sure we have access. And we'll be going through all the community shots. I'm looking forward to seeing all that fun stuff in there. Kyle Silva asked, did you see the trailer for Jackbox 8's first game, Job Job? Looks like a fun game that reminds me of Survive the Internet. No, I haven't. I've kind of been, for the last couple of Jackboxes, I've kind of been checked out. And I kind of like being surprised when I eventually get to it. So I haven't seen that yet, but that sounds great. Oh, I'm sorry. BeatenDownBrian corrects me. Yes, Kyle Hilliard can't make the Photo Mode Snap stream tonight. Tonight I'll be streaming actually with Professor Mirror himself. So you have that to look forward to. And so, yeah, it's nice. I know, like, Smithy in particular is in the community is very passionate about Photo Mode Snap and is very happy to see its grand return. So thanks to everybody who supported Photo Mode Snap, and I hope you all enjoy the new show. And jump in there real quick over on Patreon and submit something if you haven't yet. And Shazira asked, did he say 8 p.m. Central? Yes, that is the plan tonight, Shazira, for Photo Mode Snap. Hope that works for everybody. Let's see, did I miss... Oh, there was one more question over here. it was a wonderful question. Somebody submitted the text version of. This is Jalen Brooks asking, favorite MCU joke? This is my favorite question. This is so good. I was thinking about, like, for Max Spoilers, having a regular recurring segment, which is just best joke. And maybe we should still kick that off, because I love watching something and trying to figure out what was the best joke. So best joke in the entire MCU. That is such a good question. I want to say it's probably from... Oh, God. Hang on. I haven't seen Infinity War in a long time, but I think my favorite joke... Oh, hang on. It seems like people are really offended by this joke. Oh, what? Hang on. Okay. It's the joke in Infinity War where they're trying to figure out when the Guardians of the Galaxy are colliding, you know, with Spider-Man and everybody. And somebody, Doctor Strange, does he ask? Yes, Star-Lord, what master do you serve? And the Star-Lord says, what am I supposed to say? Jesus? That really might be my favorite joke in the MCU. That one absolutely killed me. Takao Silva says, my favorite MCU joke is the Mr. Doctor bit in Doctor Strange. For some reason, I think about it all the time. Yeah, that's good. I mean, Edgar Vasquez has the classic when Hulk grabs Loki in Avengers. I mean, the timing on that is excellent. So a lot of good options. Please leave a comment with your favorite MCU joke. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being in the MinnMax Council. It should be a fun week here at MinnMax and a fun month. So thanks for all the help spreading the word. Just in case you were curious, we had a bunch of giveaways for the initiative, the tabletop game, which I really, really am enjoying. We're right at the end of the storyline. I'm playing with Grant, Star of Hitman 3, and producer Amy, and having a blast playing through that. And so, but we've had a series of giveaways for the tabletop game, the initiative, which is kind of co-op, escape roomy, puzzle solving type of thing that you should really check out. It's genuinely very good. But we've contacted all the winners. And so I'm always confused how much to broadcast that. Like, you didn't win, but if you haven't been reached out to, you did not win that giveaway, and I apologize. But thanks to everybody who helped share MinnMax's content for the chance of winning. Cool. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate the support, and we'll see you later this week for even more content. Some could say more content than we've ever created before. Okay, thanks so much, everybody.